Welcome to the Monday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday. Sorry about that, folks. I didn't realize that the whole thing was playing, but there was no sound. Sorry about that. I left you guys with no sound. Unfreaking believable. Mouselander, Firefly, Heat, Dairy Bennett. How's everybody doing? Quad Bennett, welcome everybody. Just playing it for you. Not even because it wasn't even. There was no sound at all. Not even for myself. How about that? Not even for myself. Sorry about that, folks. I was stuck at work. I had sound. That's not possible, Mouselander. Honestly, I don't know. I thought it was working. I thought like there was sound, but there wasn't. Yeah, apparently clicking play just played the video and it was on mute or whatnot. Just move that out of the way. Yeah, noob. We had a pro streamer moment, okay? We had a pro streamer moment. That's okay. So this weekend I spent, I just put my own music on. There you go, see? This weekend I spent closing off the basement because the resident cat, Sir Buddy, decided that he was going to get up in the crawl space using the shelves. And he actually ended up just over there, inside the drop ceiling. So, if you join the Discord, you can look at the pictures there. He has been knighted. Yes, he's the knight. He is the protector of the home. The protector of the realm. But he also likes to get himself into trouble, so we found them in our drop ceiling, just above the studio over there. So I had to close off all the entrances. So far, it looks like it worked. It looks like it worked. He hasn't been able to get back up there again, so that was nice. Exactly. I love that little emote. All right, folks. Our time has been cut a little short here, so let me get started. Folks, if you enjoy the content and you want to support the channel, don't forget there are plenty of ways to do so. You can like or follow the channel here on Twitch. Over on YouTube, I see you. If you're on YouTube, like the stream. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, as 251 of you have already done so. Thank you. You can consider checking out the merch store. That's right. Thank you. Join the Discord. Not actually. Wait, is it this upcoming? Now I can officially say this upcoming Saturday. There will be a movie night. Dune. First movie. Why don't I have my... What's going on? Why don't I have my little bot? View status? Stats. No. What if I do, stream information. Oh no, that's for this other stuff. Yeah, remember daylight savings. If, I believe if you are, in, the UK. That's why I don't mess with bots. Yeah, I mean, like, I have this little, like, you know, the stream elements bot can also take on the name, can also take on like a custom bot, um, and I am now confused as to where actually all my stuff here on OBS is not showing up. We has it over a week ago. Oh, okay, gotcha. Michael Astor, welcome. Set up bot. Yeah. What? Okay. Where's my bot? Log in. Welcome. Don't worry, folks. We will get this show on the road soon. Bot, no, I need a shot. Okay, so let me go back. There we go. Look at that. Let me tell you a little story all about how my life got flipped around and turned upside down. Give it a cookie? Alright, let's try. No. How come I can't see anything here? I'm doing my part. Yeah, the bot's asleep today. The bot is asleep today. Look at that. No, it's okay. It's so cute when it's sleeping. Federal authorities just raided P. Diddy? Wait, wait, who? Nope, the bot's gone for today, folks. The bot is on break. Alright, well, it's okay. Like, did this just happen? Uh-oh. Prostitution? Gotcha. Whew. Just happened? Oh, man. Well, I'm sure we'll get more information as that goes on. I don't understand why. Chatbot. Whew. User management. Yes. All right, folks, let's get started. For those of you that don't know, apparently Candace Owens has been fired by the Daily Wire, and it's absolutely hilarious to me. Finally, I guess they've had enough of Candace Owens and fired her.
In a wonderfully heartwarming story, two right-wing Donald Trump-loving dipshits have turned on each other, with Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire parting ways.
Excellent.
This comes after months of a lot of things that Candace Owens has been saying that Ben Shapiro has not liked. So I'm going to go into this. I'm going to get to what happened here. Very likely, this does appear to be a firing, but again, it's, they have parted ways. As you'll see, this is the announcement from Jeremy Boring, one of the co-founders of Daily Wire. Daily Wire and Candace Owens have ended their relationship. She was fired. Let's let's just be clear. This is how firings are done now. Oh, we have decided to part ways. Yes, months after months and months of Candace Owens saying some terrible shit, and we'll get to that as well. So there's a bit of complications here because Candace Owens, it appears in like one or two sentences, has lobbied an accurate criticism of the Israeli government, but that doesn't require us to give her any sort of credit for that when the vast majority of what she does is bigoted, racist, anti-Semitic trash. And that
right, like, you do not have to give it at any point to Nazis.
So to be clear here, both sides are bad. In this fight, both sides are bad. So
Ooh, David Dole doing the both sides, huh? Yeah, Schadenfreude. Candace was fired for a single matter, not because she has been a consistent offender. Yep. Kamikaze unwelcome.
Candace Owens writing here this morning saying, "The rumors are true. I'm finally free." Going on to say there will be many announcements in the weeks to come. So I assume she's going to talk shit because this is what she does. She does this for attention. I don't know if she actually has any real politics. There, you go back in her history, she appeared to be on the left, but then maybe realized there was no money there. There's no money on the left. I'm sorry to tell you. Went to the right where she made a lot of money, and now is going to do her own thing to likely continue making a lot of money. But I'm sure she will, dish more in the future. But this is what we know so far. Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro don't really like each other, and there's a lot of reasons for that. This is what Ben Shapiro said in November about Candace Owens and her recent comments towards the Israeli conflict.
The question was about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt. I think it's
Oh boy.
Yeah, and she still works for my company. And I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
So Ben Shapiro, very clear there. Again, that was November 14th that was posted. And let's go to some of those statements, because this is where things get a bit complicated, let's say. So Owens' departure comes after months of tensions between her and Daily Wire co-founder Ben Shapiro over her promotion of various anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. This Mediaite article is written terribly because it starts by making Candace Owens seem reasonable. After the October 7th terrorist attack on Israel and outbreak of war in the Gaza Strip, Owens quickly emerged as a critic of Israel's military operations, promoting what Mediaite is claiming as falsehoods about supporting religious segregation in Jerusalem and all but accusing Israel of genocide. Before we even get to the horrible shit that she has said, that this is stuff that has been documented by human rights organizations, by the UN. In terms of segregation, this is well documented. This is Human Rights Watch. Across these areas and in most aspects of life, Israeli authorities methodically privilege Jewish Israelis and discriminate against Palestinians. Laws, policies, and statements by leading Israeli officials make plain that the objective of maintaining Jewish Israeli control over demographics, political power, and land has long guided government policy. In pursuit of this goal, authorities have dispossessed, confined, forcibly separated, and subjugated Palestinians by virtue of their identity to varying degrees of intensity. In certain areas, as described in this report, these deprivations are so severe that they amount to the crimes against humanity of apartheid and persecution. And that went for, I mean, this is an article from, I think, 2021. Just so you understand, this is not, October 7th, everything happens. No, there's a long documented history of apartheid. And then October 7th happened, and Israel's response to it has just been genocidal. UN experts call on international community to prevent genocide against the Palestinian people. That was back in November. And of course, we went on to see the ICJ ruling that I covered.
Well, you mean grifters have tenuous, brittle relationships and turn on each other easily because they're just grifters? Who could have predicted that? Yeah, who could have ever predicted that, huh? These people believe in nothing but money, so they believe in nothing. Also, I woke up the bot, okay? The bot's out of its nap. There'll be no sleeping on the job.
Which they found plausible that Israel's acts could amount to a genocide and issued 6 provisional measures ordering Israel to take all measures within its power to prevent genocidal acts, including preventing and punishing incitement to genocide, ensuring aid and services reach Palestinians under siege in Gaza, and preserving evidence of crimes committed in Gaza, all of which the Israeli government is not following. It's important to understand these facts and be able to separate that from what Candace Owens has been doing with this. She has instead turned this as a way to disparage all Jewish people. Criticisms of the Israeli government are not criticisms of Jewish people.
Correct.
Those
and
are
the thing is, like, Candace Owens didn't just have like a magical epiphany, a magical epiphany to this Israel-Palestine genocide that's going on. This is coming at it from like a far-right perspective, okay?
Very different things. One is hate. One is an accurate criticism of the actions of a government.
She's just a Nazi.
So in the months since, Owens has lashed out against political Jews and theorized about a small ring of sinister Jews exerting influence in Hollywood and Washington, D.C.
Right, that's
Most
literally
recently-
just like Nazi shit. That's literally just Nazi shit. Yeah, back money makes no distinction. True.
She liked to tweet promoting the blood libel that Jews drink Christian blood as part of certain religious ceremonies.
Yeah, like the whole like Nazi, Nazi shit where they created this fantastical story or fantasy about Jewish people being acting like a satanic cult that drinks blood. Yeah, no, this is just Nazi shit.
And in November, Boring had insisted that Owens was paid to give her opinion, and that until her opinion violated the law or the terms of her contract, she would be welcome at Daily Wire. And that's this tweet here. So this is from back in November, shortly after this video of Ben Shapiro came out of him criticizing her. Jeremy Boring tried to, tap down any idea that she'd be fired for her views, and clearly she was fired for her views. She has been, look, I think it makes perfect sense to fire somebody for the kind of hate she is spewing. But if the Daily Wire was a reputable organization, they would have no hosts left because they all spew hate to varying degrees.
Right.
But when it comes to criticisms of the Israeli government and how, look, it's impossible to know how offended these people really are about the actual anti-Semitic shit that she has been spewing, because the Daily Wire itself has spewed quite a bit of anti-Semitic garbage, separate from Candace Owens. But I think this really has a lot more to do with criticisms of the Israeli government, which Ben Shapiro is a massive defender of. So that, for them, I think, again, my opinion, I think that's what really crossed the line for them. But again, it's important to not give Candace Owens credit here. Like, there are millions.
Yeah, so you can say all the Nazi shit, you can be hateful and bigoted, but man, you cross the line when you criticize the Israeli government. By the way, like, this is no like saving grace for Candace. Like, I'm actually laughing. I'm laughing at her as well.
Millions of people who are part of, human rights organizations, who are also Jewish people. I mean, there's Jewish Voice for Peace, Independent Jewish Voices, B'Tselem, a Jewish-based or a Israel-based human rights organization, that all have accurate criticisms of the far right-wing Israeli government and apartheid and the ongoing genocide. They deserve the credit for leading this movement of human rights, for standing up for Palestinians. People like Candace Owens, who are doing whatever they do for attention, for money, don't deserve credit for the one or two sentences she may have said about, Israel's attacks on Gaza, because she's not doing it from any sort of principled stance.
Right.
Any attempt to try and give...
The only principled stance she has is related to how the next paycheck is going to be procured. Right? How many times must we say it's a leopard eating face party? Right. But these people think that it's not going to be their face until it is.
Candace Owens' credit here, I think, is simply tainting the actual human rights movement that is being led by actual activists. Putting Candace Owens into that group just taints the entire movement. There's no reason to include her in the group of people that are actually trying to fight for human rights. So she deserves no credit for any of the maybe correct things she had said in one or two sentences. Now, this gets to oh yeah, that's it. That's the end. I was gonna say this gets to her getting fired here, but that's what happened. So we're not clear yet. Again, let me just this is all sort of happening now. Just want to see if there's any more updates here. So she has, a personal YouTube page. I'll bring the show back after a brief hiatus. It's very likely she was fired.
Yeah.
I'm sure she was making quite a bit of money.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
From the Daily Wire, which again was started by billionaire investors. The Daily Wire, which pretends to care about the average person, which stands up against the elites when they themselves are the elites. It is pretty funny, but actually, this is what I wanted to end on. Some of the reaction to Jeremy Boring here in announcing this split, because there's another element of this that is just comical. I mean, this tweeter is joking.
Keep watching. All right. This is where the good stuff starts happening, right? David's gonna give us the good stuff at the end over here. Is that it?
But cancel culture, which, I mean, the way that the right throws around cancel culture for any time somebody's fired, it makes perfect sense to throw back in their face. The quarter.
There we go. The quartering. The quarter pounder himself. I saw this coming a mile away. Big Con is real. Oh man. Of course. The quartering.
Who was actually conservative, writing here, saw this coming from a mile away. Big Con is real. So a lot of the replies are supporting Candace Owens and criticizing the Daily Wire. Someone else here, this is a loss for Daily Wire and a win for Candace.
You could tell, you could immediately tell, what the vibe is when you see freaking, Nazis supporting this, right? Saying that this is a good thing for Candace Owens, right? Because that guy's a Nazi. Smug guy, Groiper, that's a Groiper. That's a freaking Nazi.
And, most of the check marks on Twitter at this point are people paying for check marks who are conservatives, because most people don't want to give Elon Musk money.
Yeah, classical theist with what looks to be like an iron cross. Oof. Yeah. That's probably a Nazi.
So a lot of these replies here that you're going to see are conservatives saying that Candace is winning here, but massive L for Daily Wire, and yeah. So, and this person appears to be from the Timcast, the little Timcast logo there. So there's a little civil war brewing, as Tim Pool would say. There's a civil war, but it's between conservative.
Yeah, Mouselander, the bot is back. I don't know why it wouldn't work for you. But the bot is back. It's done sleeping. The bot has woken up from its nap. Look at this. Discord. Go forth, my bot. See? Look at that.
Groups. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. What sort of audience the Daily Wire continues to maintain, while what happens with Candace Owens and building her right-wing audience. Whatever's going on there, this is just fun for the rest of us who aren't completely insane.
True. Conscious Canuck subscribing for 25 months. That's 1 year plus one. Thank you. I appreciate the support. Thank you. It's freezing in my apartment. Oof, yikes. Gotta get some warmth in there. All right. Hope you're doing all right.
And just as I was about to edit my video, I saw TMZ release their story, and they have some sources with some more details. So I want to be clear.
You know, when you got that TMZ, it's going to be good. All right, let's see.
On what they know here. They're saying that she was indeed fired, as I suspected. Going on to right here with sources with direct knowledge tell us it was squarely over what the Daily Wire honchos saw as anti-Semitism, and the firing went down early this week. We're told the last straw for the Daily Wire was her March 8th appearance on the Fresh and Fit podcast. The hosts were talking to Candace about the rift with Ben, and every time Ben or his wife, who is Israeli, was mentioned, the show dropped a cha-ching sound effect, an obvious nod to the anti-Semitic trope about Jews and money.
Oh.
So it does appear that indeed, at least according to their sources here, that it was the obvious anti-Semitic remarks that Candace Owens was making, or I guess participating.
Ooh. I didn't even see that. Like, I don't even watch the Fresh and Fit podcast, because there's like literally nothing of value. There's literally nothing of value to be got there. Like, there's nothing to go over there. It's just like 99% just like misogyny, and apparently you get your Nazi dog whistles in there ever so often. Ooh. Sorry, it was a little fly. You get your Nazi dog whistles in there too. It's 66 degrees Fahrenheit outside. I have windows open. It feels like 35 in my apartment. Jeez. It's honestly about the same temperature here.
Participating in this podcast.
Candace has been blatantly anti-Semitic for a lot with no blowback from Ben. Right, so like the original hypothesis was because like she stepped over the line and criticized like the actual like Israeli government, but like she's been doing the Nazi shit for a while, but maybe that was a bridge too far. Welcome the Simulacra. Welcome A-Bond. Welcome everybody. But I guess I guess that was a bridge too far.
That led to her being fired, and also apparently they had previous conversations with her to understand her position. Again, this is very clearly leaked to TMZ by the people in power at Daily Wire because they want to give a certain perspective. I'll get to another reason why I think that in a second here. But they're trying to put out this idea that we didn't want to censor her. We really didn't. So they want to avoid any criticisms of stomping on free speech. But they felt that podcast incident crossed the line. But this is why I really think they wanted to purposely leak this to TMZ, because they say here, we're told Shapiro was not involved in the decision. So they're really trying to protect Ben Shapiro here. They don't want him to face any heat over this firing, even though clearly, as we saw from the clip earlier that I showed you, he was not happy with Candace Owens. I'm sure that played, even if he wasn't directly involved with the firing, they must have talked to him. He's a co-founder. Like, I'm sure was involved in some way in this. Doesn't like Candace Owens, clearly, for obvious reasons. And even if he didn't fire her directly, I'm sure he was consulted on the firing. But they're leaking this to try and protect him for obvious reasons. So that is all the details. And as I suspected, she indeed was fired.
Mwah, mwah, mwah. Does that mean no more rot from her? Maybe. At the very least, her platform on the Daily Wire is gone. So, yeah, she's gonna have to rely on her own channel, I suppose. However popular that may be. She may get a job somewhere else. Maybe. Dinner is meatball and eggplant and olive oil vegetable juice reduction with dirty oats. What are dirty oats? What does that mean?
I am the proud mother of a trans daughter. And every time these bills come up, I ask you to think about what it would be like if your daughter was the one that you were talking about.
They don't care. They actually don't care. I don't even know like if even trying to appeal um to these hateful people like that would even work. Like unless it's like personally, like it's personally they're personally involved, they don't care. Like there's no way that these people are gonna have empathy for Congresswoman Jayapal. I bet she's gonna be on some "I got canceled, I'm the victim" trip. Yeah, maybe so. Ever had dirty rice before? I don't think so. I'm gonna have to look it up. I might have. Dirty rice. Oh, I see. Maybe. I've had some version of this. Not quite. But I know what you're talking about now. Gotcha. Same idea, just different grade. Got it. She should run as an independent. Yeah, that would be cool.
What would it be like if you were telling your daughter that she does not have the right to be who she is? Every one of you has children. I ask you to please stop targeting our trans community that is already vulnerable, that already faces so many challenges. Why are you doing this? It is a tiny portion of people across the country that identify as trans, and not a single one of them is doing anything to harm you or your family. Stop it. Stop it. We have better things to do in Congress, things that could actually lift people up across this country.
True.
You just watched a portion of Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal's speech during a House Judiciary Committee hearing on H.R. 7187. Now, you might have not heard of this bill, but this is a transphobic piece of legislation that mandates discrimination against people like her daughter in sports. Now, it was so nice to see a lawmaker passionately defend trans people and stand up to these GOP bullies. And it's obvious why she was so emotional there. I mean, this hits close to home. She has a daughter who's being targeted by these Republicans. But it was also really refreshing to see her point out how they could actually be using that time to do something constructive and, I don't know, draft policies that help the American people. But instead, Republicans are choosing to target a community that is already marginalized and already vulnerable. So it's not just cruel, it's a waste of time. Now, throughout the course of this hearing, Democrats forcefully pushed back against the transphobia that was espoused by...
Yeah, but cruelty is the point, right? The first thing in the playbook is to demonize the others,
Republicans,
correct?
And it was very powerful to watch. And we don't oftentimes get feel-good videos on this channel, but I've got to share this with you because this genuinely made me happy to see. It gave me a little bit of optimism, right? So we'll get to some of these videos in particular, specifically testimonies from Becca Bulint, Jerry Nadler even, who had really great things to say. But first, I just want to talk about the legislation itself, because even though trans women and girls are the primary targets, HR 7187 could affect cis women too by subjecting them to genital exams if they're suspected of being trans. And
Right, and we've all seen how that plays out. If you've spent enough time on the twitter.com, all these like incredibly creepy like GC, like gender critical people, when they start like saying that a completely like cis woman is trans, and they start like evaluating her body. It's incredibly creepy. So yeah, Mike Figueroa is completely correct. If you think that this is just only about like trans people, no. I hate LGBT. Well, you can go fuck yourself. How about that? I made it easy. See that? Look, awesome. Like that was so simple. You know, you just come out with it and then you get banned and that's it. It's very simple. Easy peasy. Look at that. Yeah, there you go. Simple. They are all sick. Yep.
And they want to play sports. So in a breakdown by the Equality Caucus, here's some key takeaways from a thread that they wrote about this legislation on Twitter. They say the GOP already voted to ban trans girls from school sports, but that wasn't enough. Now, instead of addressing the real issues facing girls and women's sports, like sexual harassment and unequal resources, the Judiciary Committee GOP is pushing another trans sports ban. HR 7187 is dangerous for all girls and women, not just those who are trans. Anyone could be forced to undergo invasive exams to, quote, prove they're not trans. That sounds incredibly sus to me. This bill opens the floodgates to even more harassment and abuse in women's sports, endangering every female athlete. We're seeing this in states that have banned trans kids from school teams. Parents are falsely accusing students of being...
Yeah, that's just... Whew, that is... That is some weird groomer stuff. That is some weird how do we say this? A PDF file. That is some weird PDF file. Excuse me, PDF file kind of legislation, because like if the ultimate goal is to like essentially try to legislate genital inspections for, you know, kids on the basis that you think that they're trans, because a parent spoke up and it's like, hey, that person is trans, so I guess now we need to do a genital inspection. Like, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, it is 100% Firefly. This is we're approaching some creepy territory, and anyone who wrote the bill, co-sponsored it, voted for it, check their hard drives. Yeah, Wikipedia. There you go.
Trans, and schools are secretly investigating students' gender identities without parental consent. Republicans need to stop their obsession with attacking trans people and instead work across the aisle to address the real issues impacting girls and women in sports. And that right there is a really important point to end on, because these laws are introduced under the pretense of protecting women's sports when trans people aren't a threat to women's sports. The real threat to women's sports, as the Human Rights Campaign points out, is a lack of funding compared to men's sports. For example, across 6 sports, schools only spent an average of 71 cents on women's sports for every dollar that they spent on men's sports. That includes 40% more on travel and equipment, as well as 51% more on recruitment. And of the 15 states that have either passed or introduced bans on trans athletes, all of them have significant disparities in funding between male and female sports, with an average of 70 cents spent on women's sports for every dollar spent for men across all of these states, with Kansas, Texas, and Kentucky seeing the largest disparities. So make no mistake about it, the Republicans drafting these trans sports bans don't actually care about women's sports. They just hate trans people. Yep. Full stop. And that was illustrated perfectly in the state of Kentucky, one of the states with the worst disparities in sports between men and women, by the way, when Republicans decided to ban the state's only known trans athlete from her middle school hockey team, even though she literally helped to create that team and save the sport at her school.
Middle school. Okay. A middle school trans person. That out of the entire state. Well, less than that, I would be willing to best. It's better. It's closer to 58 cents to $1.
So in her testimony, 13-year-old Fisher Wells begged Republican lawmakers to let her play in the girls' hockey team that she helped to create, explaining that there wasn't even enough interest in the sport at her school, so she recruited enough girls to form a team, and she explained how fun it's been for her and her friends to be able to play hockey together. But after explaining all of this, and how her presence on the team wasn't controversial, her friends wanted to play with her, her coach wanted her to play, guess what they decided to do? They voted anyway to ban her from playing in the hockey team that she literally helped to create. I'll say it
Yeah.
again. This isn't about making women's sports more fair. It's about being cruel towards trans people.
That's it.
Now, Jerry,
Like that's literally it. At the end of the day, like that's it. Cruelty is the point.
Adler, who I rarely give credit to, had a phenomenal response to this bill because he, for 5 minutes, literally just lays out fact after fact after fact about how this bill is nothing more than a cynical ploy to discriminate against trans people. But more than that, it also could literally embolden predators. Let's watch.
H.R. 7187, the so-called
Right, because the only people that would be supporting this would be, you know, people with that type of people with that type of thought process. Cruelty gets ignorant voter support. Yep.
Protection of Women in Olympic and Amateur Sports Act is a cynical and dangerous measure. This bill would force the national governing bodies, or NGBs, of various amateur sports to adopt exclusionary transgender policies or face losing their status as an NGB in their respective sport. This legislation is yet another ugly attempt by Republicans to bully an already vulnerable minority of trans youth athletes for political gain. To begin, this legislation is a solution in search of a problem. The International Olympics Committee has permitted transgender athletes to compete since 2003. Yet only a handful of trans athletes have ever been qualified.
Yeah, like this has been a thing for like decades, and like all of a sudden now it's a problem. All of a sudden now conservatives are really concerned about women's sports. Yeah. Okay.
For an Olympic event, and the U.S. has only ever sent one transgender woman to the Olympics as an alternate who ultimately did not compete. Under the current system, NGBs determine their own inclusion policies, which vary from sport to sport and which continue to evolve. For example, boxers are not subject to the same transgender inclusion policies as equestrians. Indeed, USA Boxing recently announced that trans women are eligible to compete in women's events, but they are subject to the most stringent requirements of any sport with a documented policy. NGBs and the people closest on the ground to the ground on this issue should be left to develop fair and inclusive policies. They do not need Congress to interfere, especially a Republican majority more interested in fear-mongering and demagoguing than actually protecting women.
True.
This bill would have us replace transgender inclusion policies that are currently determined on a sport-by-sport basis with a one-size-fits-all ban. MAGA Republicans may crow that they have excluded a handful of trans athletes from amateur athletic competitions, but they will not have improved the lives of any of the competitors. This blanket ban may appeal to the Republican MAGA base, but it has no basis in fact, performance outcomes, or basic human decency. In fact, a blanket ban on transgender women athletes will harm all women and girls who participate in amateur athletic competitions. This bill would likely lead to invasive screening procedures to verify an athlete's gender.
And let it be clear, these people don't care about women either, like cis women. Another week's stats came out today, week 57, by Kirsten B. on sexual assaults of kids, where once again the clergy and Republicans who continue to dominate the total. Wow, yeah, no surprises there, you know. The whole groomer crowd being the whole groomer crowd being the actual groomers. Have you ever watched the Salty Whatever? Why have you been banned in all these channels? Let's see how fast. Do we want to play? Do we want to place over under as to how long this person's gonna last? Because they're commies. And where did you think you landed? Over under on how fast this person lasts. She has a short TikTok video I put in US News if you want to check it after. Actually, I think this is a perfect time to check it out, actually. Where are we? Here we are.
One of them was undocumented. One out of 252 names we added to the database of who is making news for sex crimes involving children. Exactly one was reported to be an undocumented person. There were no drag queens again this week. We are now at 8,713 cases over 13 and a half months of tracking. And of the 8,713, only one has been a drag queen. But this week alone, 24 were in the religion business, just under 10%. We do have a footnote about a transgender person who made the news. We will get to that in a moment. But first, a note that one Florida priest was actually cleared when his accuser recanted. This person was never in our database, while a Virginia Catholic school teacher escaped with no jail time despite pleading no contest to multiple counts.
Oof. Yikes. That's why you delete my message and have that cringy ass bot list all your leftist friends. No, it's just list the people that you get banned from. I don't know why you would even step in front of here. It's not by accident that you landed here. It's not by accident that you landed here. You chose to be here, dude. You chose to make the jump.
This is the second week in a row that a Catholic schoolteacher has not gone to jail after being convicted of child sex crimes. But the Sacramento, California Diocese has announced it's filing for bankruptcy, facing more lawsuits for priests abusing children. One evangelical pastor is on this week's list, but that is not the pastor accused of hiring a hitman to kill his daughter's boyfriend. And there's another big Mormon sect that's apparently involved in a child sex and financial crime scandal. But what I'm seeing the right wing pushing in its rage media empire is that one undocumented person and the story of the transgender teenager who at age 16 shot and killed a 12-year-old girl, a close friend, in Pennsylvania. The then 16-year-old is now 18 and was just sentenced to 45 years in prison. There were no charges that there were sex crimes involved in this case, but there was an affidavit filed at one point that suggested that the 16-year-old had been intimate with the 12-year-old. And while this case does not make our list because there was no sex crime charged, it does rate a mention. You want to check the work? You want to see if I'm telling the truth? All 8,713 cases that have been included, and many excluded as well, are listed at whoismakingnews.com in the database. The score as of today, 677 employees of the religion industry are on the list, along with the one drag queen and 4 transgender people. 9 of the worst 10, 17 of the worst 20 states, that's with the highest per capita incidence of sexual abuse of children, are Republican-controlled top to bottom.
No surprises there.
Who is it that we're passing laws to control?
No surprises there. No surprises. I feel like that was a nice tangent to add to the story that we're dealing with here, because like, what exactly is the point here of this legislation, right? You know, the answer to that is twofold. One, it's cruelty, and just to be cruel to trans people. But 2, it's also an incredibly like predatory. It opens up the avenues for predatory behavior. So who exactly would be pushing for this type of legislation if not predators and people with predatory proclivities or defenders of predators, right? That's it. Those are the only type of people who would be like, yeah, I guess we're gonna have genital inspections, you know. I guess that's a thing that we're going to need to have. Who does this? Exactly. Abusers loved having the law on their side.
Gender. This is particularly concerning considering the various sexual abuse scandals affecting sports, like that involving Larry Nassar, a doctor for the U.S. women's national gymnastics team who pled guilty to offenses relating to the sexual abuse of minors, and whose case is considered one of the worst sexual abuse scandals in sports history. The invasive screening invited by this bill.
Exactly. So when you see there's consistent stats on who the predators are and see the legislation, they're setting it up to abuse more kids. Exactly. Because like that's literally the only type of people who would look at this legislation and would be like, yeah, this is good legislation. The only type of people who would be pushing for it are predators, people with predatory proclivities, or defenders of predators. That's it. Who forgot to empty the Trumpster? The channel's attracting a lot of gadflies and gnats. That's right. It's just a Monday. Occasionally, the circus ends early, and the clowns find the channel. That's okay.
Would potentially create opportunities ripe for abusers. Spare me the Republican crocodile tears about protecting women and girls in sports. If Republicans were truly interested in protecting women and girls or ensuring equal opportunity, they would address the real barriers to women's equality in sports rather than targeting trans women and girls to further their political agenda. A recent report by the Women's Sports Foundation found actual verifiable barriers to women's and girls' sports equality, including a lack of financial resources, gender role stereotypes, vulnerability to abuse, and workplace bias and wage gaps. Notably missing from the list, the inclusion of transgender women. This legislation's effects on women's and girls' amateur sports alone isn't reason enough to oppose it. Yet the negative impact of this bill is not limited to a subset of elite athletes and amateur athletic competitions. It would also cause additional harm to the small, vulnerable community of trans youth athletes that have already been bullied out of scholastic sports by the MAGA Republicans in control of red state legislatures. If passed, this bill would lead to a trickle-down effect throughout an NGB's network of amateur associations and sponsored competitions. Because nearly half of all states already categorically ban trans women and girls from scholastic sports, trans youth will be denied the last avenue to organize athletic participation available to them, along with all the social, academic, and health benefits organized sports provide. For example, in Chairman Jordan's home state of Ohio, the state legislature recently enacted a ban on transgender women and girls participating in scholastic sports competitions that match their gender identity, over the veto of Republican Governor Mike DeWine. This spiteful measure has the dubious honor.
Right. Land of the free, right? Here's a follow-up question. Are they going to legislate trans men as well?
Of affecting virtually nobody in the state and being appallingly cruel to the few people it does affect. In 2023, there were only 6, count them 6, transgender girls participating in sports programs for grades 7 through 12 out of 400,000 student athletes in Ohio at the time, a minuscule percentage of the population. And we know from reporting that none of those children posed a threat to the chairman and his allies. They just wanted to play in a team with their friends. We hear additional ugly stories from other Republican-run states. And unfortunately, my Republican colleagues here want to export that needless cruelty to every state in the nation.
Listen,
True.
credit where it's due. I have a lot of disagreements with Jerry Nadler, but what he said there was spot on. Now, to his point about there not being enough trans people in sports to even be a significant issue, like I really want to hone in on that for a moment. We've talked about this before, but there are approximately less than 200 known trans athletes across the entire country, both at the K through 12 and collegiate level. And those hundreds of athletes. If you even want to say hundreds, it's about less than 200, maybe 150 altogether. But those athletes are not why there's a lack of equity in women's sports. And if Republicans actually wanted to make women's sports more fair, well, they could do that by allocating more resources to those women's teams across the country. But they're not doing that because they don't care. They only...
Right. They just to be very clear, they never cared about women's sports. Okay. Like, at no point in the entirety of, that I've ever been in politics have I heard conservatives be incredibly concerned or gung-ho about women's sports, okay? That's not a thing that happened. Can someone please explain why Republicans hate America? I've always wondered why. They're just a fascist party. Fascism is incoherent and relies on the ideas of being able to hold two completely contradictory things at the same time. That's how this works. They claim to love America while also hating everything about it that they claim that is a concept of America, whatever that means, in their heads. It's just fascism. They're just fascist. There's no real logic other than they just believe in pure power and subjugation. That's it. They only believe in power and subjugation. They long for the other America, the Confederacy.
Only want to demonize trans people. But thankfully, Democrats called that out during this hearing, and they also decided to lambaste Republicans for focusing on this non-issue in the first place. So we're going to hear from Becca Balint, who's going to point out the absurdity of this hearing and also have some really good other comments.
I have to tell you, I've been absolutely stunned by the amount of time and energy that we have spent in this Congress talking about trans kids, their parents, gay Americans, that somehow my community is the source of all that is wrong in this country. And as a former teacher, I can tell you it is hard enough to be an adolescent without getting all of these messages from our elected officials that somehow they are not worthy, they are not loved. And some of the rhetoric that I hear right now in this body is about making them less than human. And all they want to do is live their lives. Attend school, have friends, participate in sports. Know that their government is not using every opportunity to fan the flames of fear and hatred. Now, I understand that there are some people in this room and in this body as a whole that may actually believe the rhetoric, may actually believe that you are doing good. But I'm telling you, it has a devastating effect on children, on teens, and their parents. I don't believe that you think you're doing real damage, but I'm telling you, you are. This is not how we should be spending our time. We should be spending our time uplifting Americans, alleviating suffering, letting Americans know that we believe in them and we support them. And not this fear-mongering, this constant fear-mongering in this Congress. People who just want to live their lives. and the families who love them.
That was absolutely incredible. And one point that she made just doesn't get brought up enough. So these anti-trans bills have a detrimental effect on the mental health of trans youth. As Mary Retta explained in a 2021 op-ed for Teen Vogue, anti-trans legislation is making trans youth feel less safe, even if they have a support system behind them. Now, one example that they share is from a black trans girl named Zara, for example, who is worried about her education and her safety on campus in Arkansas, because even though her parents support her, she doesn't feel safe knowing that the state is targeting her. But that is the intended effect of these bills. It's not like an unintended consequence. They know the effect that these laws and these bills being proposed is going to have on trans youth, but that's the point. Republicans just want to be cruel to trans people, and I say this because more and more of them are just admitting that they want to be cruel. Right? So we did a video not that long ago about a family in Florida who had to flee the state after they banned gender affirming care for trans youth because they were worried that their teen daughter couldn't get access to gender affirming care any longer. And all of the comments were from right-wingers saying, good, I'm glad that they're leaving. These are groomers. They want to mutilate the genitals of their daughter. Shame on them. Just absolutely disgusting. I mean, can you imagine if there was some Democratic Party policy that led a bunch of Republicans to flee? Christians, for example, let's say a bunch of Christians were targeted because of a particular law passed by Democrats. Do you think that they would react by laughing, or they would take kindly to liberals and leftists laughing at that law? Of course not. I wouldn't support a law like that because as Americans, I actually do believe in freedom, but they don't. They want to be cruel, right? Now, these things that Balint is saying and all of these.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Sharpie Diesel, welcome. Anything to keep people from realizing the growth of wealth inequality. Yep. True, heartless and narrow-minded. I'm glad they were able to leave, but many cannot. Yep. Freedom became toxic when non-white people started getting it. Yep.
These Democrats are saying it's not going to resonate with these Republicans at this hearing, but I refuse to believe that it won't resonate with normal Americans because I don't think that people are that cruel. I think that they just don't know about trans issues, and as we inform and educate more of them, they will come around as they did on the issue of gay rights. Now, I do want to get to one more great response by Sheila Jackson Lee. So she's going to share her experience as a little girl growing up during Jim Crow, and she explains how devastating it is to denigrate an entire group of people and the impact that that has on individuals within that group. This was so powerful. Let's watch.
Why would we even entertain legislation that is denigrating, denying, destroying the life of a population of people? The trans community exists. In this instance, I can place myself in the categories of the 20th century and now the 21st, when race denigrated me. I'm still in that category, but when it was severely used to denigrate me. I could not vote. I could not sit on a bus in the front. I could not ride a train as a little girl. I had to ride in the colored person's train, a caboose, whatever it was, as I traveled to visit my grandparents with a brown bag of food because I could not eat where they served food. And traveled as a 9-year-old. As my parents put me on the train, they had to explain to make it fun that I was in this car versus another place of seating. My ticket didn't cost any less. And so I respectfully ask that this legislation be withdrawn from the roster.
Yeah. And in the same way that segregationists were on the wrong side of history, transphobes are also on the wrong side of history. And right now, it might not seem like that's the case, but it's not going to take very long for society to look back and collectively realize that the way that we treated trans people in this era was very, very reprehensible and shameful. Now, even though these transphobes might not want to admit it, we all know that if they were alive during the Jim Crow era, they would be siding with the segregationists. And that's not necessarily conjecture, because the same politicians today that were alive during that era are also transphobic now. So, I mean, if you're against civil rights...
Did she vote yes to fund Israel? That's a good question. Jackson Lee. What was this the recent funding bill? The one that Biden just signed, okay. How do I see the record here? Okay, 1.2 trillion dollar bill. Okay, here we go. I have the list of senators, but I don't know anything about the House. I actually have it here. Oh no, she voted yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think this is it. If you wanna take a look, but it looks like she did. That's what I found.
That this legislation be withdrawn from the roster.
Yeah. And in the same way that segregationists were on the wrong side of history, transphobes are also on the wrong side of history. And right now, it might not seem like that's the case, but it's not going to take very long for society to look back and collectively realize that the way that we treated trans people in this era was very, very reprehensible and shameful. Now, even though these transphobes might not want to admit it, we all know that if they were alive during the Jim Crow era, they would be siding with the segregationists. And that's not necessarily conjecture, because the same politicians today that were alive during that era are also transphobic now. So, I mean, if you're against civil rights and you're a bigot, I mean, you're going to constantly find yourself on the wrong side of history. So, in conclusion, feigned hysteria over trans people in sports is nothing more than a cynical ploy to villainize trans people, and I would encourage every single ally to educate themselves about this topic so we can educate others about this topic. And the quicker we do that, the quicker we can move on from this issue and just give trans people the civil rights and liberty that they deserve.
Yep. Cruelty is the point, folks. Cruelty is the point.
Friday, Marjorie Taylor Greene, following a vote to actually keep the government running, which pissed Marjorie Taylor Greene off. She wanted a shutdown, of course, but the House did come together. They passed the budget. We're once again averting at the last minute another government shutdown. But Marjorie Taylor Greene was so pissed off about this that she immediately filed a motion to vacate the Speaker's chair, meaning Republicans could once again, for the third time in 14.
If this happens, I don't know how close to this. I don't know how close we are to this being a thing. But if this happens, this would be absolutely hilarious.
Months, be looking at having to elect a new speaker. Here is what Marjorie Taylor Greene said when she filed this motion. She said, "This is a betrayal of the American people. This is a betrayal of the Republican voters. I filed the motion to vacate today, but it's more of a warning and a pink slip. I do not wish to inflict pain on our conference and to throw the House in chaos, but this is basically a warning, and it's time for us to go through the process, take our time, and find a new Speaker of the House." Now, she didn't file this motion as privilege, which means they have 2 days, 2 working days, to vote on it. But luckily for them, they're now off on their 2-week recess, so they've got a little bit of time before they actually have to deal with this, and she could go back in later and put the privilege motion on there. But she's like, I don't want to throw things into chaos. This is just a warning, but we're going to vote on a new speaker. So she made that clear. And this is the dumbest possible thing Republicans could do, not just in an election year, which is bad enough because you already did it last October. Now you're going to do it again. But last time you did it, you had more Republican seats than you do now. In fact, by the time this happens, you will have been down 4 Republican seats from where you were last time. Which means we could likely end up with a Democratic Speaker of the House. In fact, there's probably a bigger possibility of ending up with a Democrat as the Speaker of the House than there is with Republicans coming together and picking one of their own, because this is a simple majority vote. Of all the members in the chamber at the time the vote is taken, whichever candidate has the majority of votes wins. So if you get 2 Republican defections, we get a Democratic Speaker of the House, assuming all of the Democrats vote together. And this is actually something that Matt Gaetz understands, and Matt Gaetz is freaked out about this whole thing.
This is
following
absolutely
Greene's
hilarious.
motion to vacate.
Oh my goodness. Who the hell does she think the American people are? Well, we know. This is hilarious. Absolutely. This is freaking hilarious. Hey, come on.
Matt Gaetz went out and said, If we vacated this speaker, we'd end up with a Democrat. When I vacated the last one, I made a promise to the country that we would not end up with the Democrat speaker, and I was right. I couldn't make that promise again. We'd have Republicans cross over. I worry that we've got Republicans who would vote for Hakeem Jeffries at this point. I really do. I take no joy in saying that. But you can only vacate the speaker if you know that the party leadership won't change hands. I knew that with certainty last time. I don't know it with certainty this time.
I don't know about that. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. It took how many rounds of voting? If you were that certain, wouldn't it have taken a lot? Wouldn't it have taken a lot fewer rounds? The Republicans are falling apart after all. Thankfully, like I said, thankfully the silver lining in all this is that these people are so freaking incompetent. Whew. Margarine Taylor Greens only likes one kind of Americans. True. True.
So I kind of love how Gates is like, look, when I did it, it was totally okay. Like, I knew what I was doing. I'm not a fool. Even though you made a fool of the entire Republican Party and it's going to cost y'all in November. But when Green does it, like, oh man, she's so dumb. I agree. And yeah, you could end up with a Democratic speaker. But she's actually using the rule that you pushed for last January when Kevin McCarthy first became the speaker. Because you're the one who demanded that we have a simple one person can file a motion to vacate, then we have to have a vote rule. Remember, Matt? So this really is all your fault. And I know you're freaked out about it, rightfully so. But you did this. You may not have filed this particular motion, but this is on you because you're the one who put the rule in place. You demanded it. So this is what you asked for. Now you have to deal with the consequences, right, Matt? We'll see what happens. We'll see if they vote on it. Again, we got 2 weeks with Congress being out in recess. So anything could happen. But I think no matter what happens, this is all going to end very badly for the Republicans come November.
I hope so. At this point, like that's kind of what we're betting on, right? We're betting on the Republicans being so grossly incompetent that they just fail at everything that they try to do, right? That's what we're kind of banking on here. Yeah, Gates is a wiki PDF file. That's right. Chickens are coming home to roost, or whatever barnyard analogy. Yeah, I think that's appropriate. The chickens are coming home to roost.
Well, folks, we have crossed that 1 million subscriber mark.
Nice. If this actually goes through, I'm gonna laugh so much. Like we might have to bust out the crab rave for that one. If if Mike Johnson gets vacated, if Speaker Mike Johnson gets vacated, I'm busting out the crab rave, okay? I think it's worth it. So to kind of follow up on that, quote, there's going to be a problem. House Republicans ramp up pressure campaign on Speaker Johnson after the budget saga. After 6 months of budget deadlock, stopgap funding measures, and near-miss government shutdowns, Congress finalized the remaining parts of the permanent spending package for the rest of the fiscal year this weekend. Before Speaker Johnson can exhale, he will have to face the House Republican far right, the fascist caucus. And they have made it clear that they intend to turn up the heat on the speaker's next uphill funding battle. Ukraine. I can promise you, if you put a Ukraine bill on the floor and you haven't secured the border, there's going to be a problem within the ranks and on Capitol Hill, said the fascist caucus member Chip Roy on Sunday's CNN State of the Union. Johnson is already in hot water with the fascist caucus for his concessions to pass the budget bill and avert a government shutdown. I think Speaker Johnson, I've been public about this, made a mistake, said Chip Roy. I don't think this bill was reflective of what the American people want. Roy joins a chorus of Republican far-right who opposed the budget bill as it were being passed through the chambers of Congress over the past several days. Moments after the House voted to pass the budget bill on Friday morning, hardliner fascists. I don't understand what the point is. Jesus Christ. What the point is of calling them hardliners. They're just fascists, okay? There's no point in hardliners. Yeah, okay. Pressure on a Johnson. No, on Johnson. The American people want a government that functions, correct. And this ain't it. Filed a motion to oust Johnson from his post. Johnson has made several last-minute moves in order to pass the budget bill before funding ran out on Friday at midnight, after which a partial government shutdown would take effect. For example, he disobeyed the House's 72-hour review rule, which requires a 72-hour window after the legislative text is released and before voting so that lawmakers can review the proposal. He also used an expedited voting procedure that requires two-thirds of the vote in favor rather than a simple majority, which meant that he would have had to seek Democratic support to pass the legislation. We have famously the smallest majority in U.S. history, said Johnson, so yeah, by necessity, you're going to have to get both parties to agree to a lot of this. Compromising with Democrats was one of the central grievances that led to former Speaker McCarthy losing his post. He became the first speaker to ever be ousted. McCarthy's fate has been a specter looming over Johnson's speakership as he tries to balance the interests of hardline conservatives, far-right fascists who elected him while compromising enough to keep the government running. With the budget finally agreed upon, Ukraine funding decision will be more challenging for Johnson to dodge. Congress has continued to punt Ukraine funding, which has been depleted for months. The House is currently sitting on a $95 billion spending proposal to provide aid to Ukraine and Israel, along with any other war-torn regions, which the Senate passed on February. But Republicans like Roy oppose a sustained sustained aid for Ukraine's ongoing war with Russia. Not $1 should go to Ukraine funding. Not $1 if the border of the United States is wide open. Good news, everybody! The United States border is not wide open. The border has become a top voting issue in 2024, mainly after Republicans tanked a spending bill that would have provided $20 billion in border funding. Former President Trump fueled the Republican dissent, reportedly telling Republicans to oppose the package so as to not deliver Democrats a border victory during election year. Phenomenal stuff. Yeah. How about a ban on TikTok instead? Yeah, there you go. That'll get 80% of government working together. You know, advocating for universal healthcare system? Nah. Universal college? Nah. Helping homeless people? Nah. Making sure kids have lunches in school? Nah, we're going to take that away. Banning TikTok? 80% of government shows up for the banning of TikTok. Phenomenal stuff. And it's not like, oh, we're going to try to solve like the problems with social media. Nah, it wasn't even that. Phenomenal stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, I thought I already had this. Hold on. Elon Musk fought government surveillance while profiting off government surveillance. Nice. The internet platform Twitter filed a lawsuit against the government, and it hoped would force transparency around abuse-prone surveillance of social media users. X's court battle, though, clashes with an uncomfortable fact. The company is itself in the business of government surveillance of social media. Nice! Nice. Under the new ownership of Elon Musk, Twitter has continued the litigation until its defeat in January. The suit was aimed at overturning a governmental ban on disclosing the receipts of requests, known as national security letters, that compel companies to turn over everything from user metadata to direct private messages. Companies that have received these requests are typically legally bound to keep the request secret and can usually only disclose the number they've received in a given year in vague numerical ranges. In its petition to the Supreme Court last September, X's attorneys took up the banner of communications privacy. History demonstrates that the surveillance of electronic communication is both fertile ground for government abuse and lightning rod political topic of intense concern to the public. After the court declined to take up the case in January, Musk responded, tweeting, "Disappointing that the Supreme Court declined to hear this matter." The court's refusal to take the case ended Twitter's legal bid, but the company and Musk had positioned themselves at the forefront of a battle on behalf of the internet users for greater transparency about government surveillance. However, emails between the U.S. Secret Service and surveillance firms Dataminr, obtained by the Intercept and a Freedom of Information request, show Twitter is in an awkward position, profiting from the sale of user data for government surveillance purposes. At the time, it was fighting secrecy around another flavor of state surveillance in court. While national security letters allow government to make targeted demands for non-public data on an individual basis, companies like Dataminr continuously monitor public activity on social media and other internet platforms. Dataminr provides its customers with customized real-time alerts on desired topics, giving clients like police departments a form of social media omniscience. That's wild. The alert allows for police to, for instance, automatically track a protest as it moves from its planning stages into the streets without requiring police officials to do any time-intensive searches. Nice! Cool. Very cool. Very, very cool that the government and police have this kind of power. Although Dataminr defends First Alert, its government surveillance platform, as a public safety tool, cool, that helps first responders react quickly to sudden crises. The tool has been repeatedly shown to be used by police to monitor First Amendment protected online speech and real-world protests. Wow. Surprise. Dataminr has long touted its special relationship with Twitter as integral to First Alert. Twitter previously owned the stake in Dataminr, though divested before Musk's purchase. Unlike other platforms that surveils by scraping user content, Dataminr pays for the privileged access to X, though the company's firehose, through the company's firehose, a direct, unfiltered feed of every single piece of user content ever shared publicly to the platform. Watching everything that happens on Twitter in real time is key to Dataminr's pitch to the government. The company essentially leases indirect access to this massive spray of information, with Dataminr acting as an intermediary before Twitter's servers and a multitude of police, intelligence, and military agencies. While it is unclear whether under Musk, Twitter would continue leasing access to its users to Dataminr and by extension the government, the emails from Secret Service confirmed that as of last summer, the social media platform was very much still in the government surveillance business. Quote, Dataminr has a unique contractual relationship with Twitter, whereby we have real-time access to full stream of all publicly available tweets, a representative of the surveillance company wrote to the Secret Service in a July 2023 message about the terms of the law enforcement agency's surveillance subscription. In addition to all of Dataminr's public sector customers today have agreed to these terms, including dozens who are responsible for law enforcement, whether at the local, state, or federal level. The terms are not mentioned in the emails. According to an email from Secret Service in the same thread, the agency's interest in Dataminr was unambiguous. The whole point of this contract is to use the information for law enforcement purposes. Privacy advocates told The Intercept that X's Musk-era warnings of government surveillance abuse are contradictory to the company's continued sale of user data for the purpose of government surveillance. Neither Twitter nor Dataminr responded to a request for comment. Surprise, surprise. Twitter's legal briefs acknowledge that the communication surveillance is ripe for government abuse and we can't depend on the police to police themselves. said Jennifer Kranick, the Surveillance and Cybersecurity Counsel at the ACLU. ACLU is Speech, Privacy, and Technology Project. But then Twitter turns around and sells Dataminr Firehose access to users' posts, which Dataminr then passes through the government in the form of unregulated disclosure and speculative prediction that can falsely ensnare the innocent. Social media platforms should protect the privacy of their users, said Adam Schwartz, the privacy litigation director at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which filed an amicus brief in support of Twitter's Supreme Court petition. For example, platforms must not provide special services like real-time access to the full stream of public-facing posts to surveillance vendors who share this information with police departments. If Twitter is providing such access to Dataminr, that would be disappointing. Following the 2016 investigation into user Twitter data for police surveillance by the ACLU, the company went so far as to expressly ban third parties from conducting or providing surveillance or gathering intelligence and monitoring sensitive events, including but not limited to protests, rallies, or community organizing meetings, using the Firehose data. The new policy went so far as to ban the use of Firehose data for the purpose of pertaining to any alleged or actual commission of crime, ostensibly a problem for Dataminr's crime-fighting clientele. These assurances have done nothing to stop Dataminr from using the data it buys from Twitter to do exactly these things. Prior reporting from The Intercept has shown that the company has, in recent years, helped federal and local police surveil entirely peaceful BLM protests and abortion right rallies in recent years. Neither Twitter nor Dataminr have responded to repeated requests to explain how a tool that allows for real-time monitoring of protests is permitted under a policy that expressly bans the monitoring of protests. In the past, both Dataminr and X have denied monitoring the real-time communications of people on the internet, and relaying that information to police is a form of surveillance because the posts in question are public. What do you think surveillance is? Like, surveillance doesn't mean whether or not, the information is public. Like, if you're two, I don't know, detectives staking out a place, and you're in a public place and you're surveilling a public place because you think somebody's there that you're trying to keep tabs of, that's still surveillance. Just because you're doing it from a public place does not mean you are not surveilling people. Yeah, nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see. Everything is totally normal. Twitter later softened this prohibition by noting surveillance applications were banned unless explicitly approved by Twitter in writing. Dataminr, for its part, remains listed as an official partner of Twitter. Though the means differ, national security scholars told The Intercept that the ends of national security letters and Firehose monitoring are the same. Widespread government surveillance with little to no meaningful oversight. Neither the national security letters nor dragnet social media surveillance requires sign-off from a judge, and in both cases, those affected are left unaware that they've fallen under government scrutiny. Cool, nice. Nice meme. Quote, while I appreciate that there may be some symbolic difference between giving the government granular data directly and make them sift through what they buy from data brokers, the end result is still that the user data ends up in the hands of law enforcement, and this time without any legal process, said David Green, Civil Liberties Director at EFF. Hildebeest rating with a party of 34. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Arberlin, Adric, welcome, everybody. Hildebeest, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Folks, if you haven't seen me before, I am A Difficult Truth. I do the news. I do the politics. We are here Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you. Please take a moment to go show some support to Hildebeest. Phenomenal stream. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for bringing your wonderful community over. I appreciate it. Thank you. So for those of you that are just tuning in, it turns out that Elon Musk, despite whatever he says, his Twitter is involved in giving, despite what he says, government information on people. Hilda is a non-sus Canadian. True. While I appreciate there may have been some symbolic difference between giving the government granular data directly and making them sift through what they buy from data brokers, the end result is still that user data ends up in the hands of law enforcement, and this time without any legal process. It is the kind of ideological contradiction typical of Twitter's owner. Musk has managed to sell himself as a heterodox critic of U.S. foreign policy and big government, while simultaneously enriching himself by selling the state expensive military hardware through his rocket company SpaceX. While Twitter's efforts to bring more transparency to the national security letter process are commendable, its objection to government surveillance of communication in that context is glaringly at odds with its decision to support similar surveillance measures through its partnership with Dataminer. Said Mary Pat Dyer, director of Georgetown University's Law Institute of Technology and Law and Policy. Scholars and advocates have long argued that Dataminer's partnership is squarely inconsistent with the platform's policy forbidding the use of its data for surveillance, and Twitter's continued failure to end the relationship prevents the company from credibly portraying itself as an advocate for user privacy. Yeah. Spoiler alert, they're not. Me too. Am I a non-sus Canadian? Yes, allegedly. The rare Canadian political streamer who covers Canadian politics. That's true. U.S. Appeals Court curtails EPA's ability to regulate PFAS under toxic substance law. Cool. Nice. A federal appeals court vacated 2 EPA orders prohibiting a Texas plastic treatment company from manufacturing toxic forever chemicals while treating plastic containers used to hold things like pesticides and household cleaners. A unanimous 3-judge panel of New Orleans-based 5th U.S. Circuit of Appeals on Thursday agreed with the enhanced technologies that the EPA overstepped its authority by issuing the orders, since they were rooted in the section of the federal toxic chemical law reserved for regulating new chemicals, which, okay, whatever, honestly. The judge said Section 5 of the TSCA does not apply to fluorination process. Enhance has used for 4 decades to reinforce plastic packaging, even if it was only recently discovered to inadvertently create PFAS, essentially, polyfluoroalkyl substances. How's that for pronunciation, huh? The EPA's use of the word new in Section 5 to apply to processes that are decades old defies common sense. You know what defies common sense? Allowing corporations to continue to get away with poisoning us, and not just like us, but everything. These PFAS chemicals are literally everywhere and in everything. They're from all the way from the chemicals, from the petrochemical company, where they're essentially where they come from, because that's all these like plastic petrochemical companies that make this, all the way into our very bloodstream, into the food we eat, into our cells, poisoning us from top to bottom, from our food to our water, everything. And there's no getting away from these things. The reason why they're called forever chemicals is because they take literally forever, as far as we're concerned, to break down. That's what defies common sense, is to allow these companies to get away with this. Yeah, overtly poisoning us. Wicked stuff indeed. PFAS are a class of thousands of chemicals used in a wide range of consumer products like nonstick pans and stain-resistant clothing that have been linked to cancer and hormonal dysfunction. They are often called forever chemicals because they do not easily break down in nature or the human body. The chemicals are produced as a byproduct of the fluorination process, which involves treating plastic containers with fluorine gas to make them rigid. The case has been been closely watched by legal experts who say the orders were based on a novel and expansive interpretation by the EPA of its authority under the TSCA. Attorneys said the interpretation could have allowed the agency to crack down on chemicals made as byproducts in any number of older manufacturing processes. The EPA and representative for Enhanced did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The EPA started requiring companies to submit notice regarding significant new uses of certain PFAS in 2020 as a part of a series of regulatory actions to address the growing concerns that PFAS pose an urgent public health and environmental issue. They absolutely do. They absolutely do. Enhance sued the EPA in the Fifth Circuit in December after a week after the agency issued the 2 orders prohibiting it from producing several PFAS when it treats hundreds of millions of containers per year. The EPA said that the PFAS produced during Enhance's fluorination is considered to be, quote, new use under the TSCA because the agency was not previously aware that PFAS was created as a byproduct in the process. Enhance said in the lawsuit that the significant new use orders, which required the company to cease fluorination products unless it could do so without producing PFAS, could force it out of business. It also said the EPA was wrong to categorize PFAS produced during its fluorination process as new since it had used the same process for decades, even though it was not known that Enhance's fluorination produced PFAS until after 2020. And incidentally, after more regulations were put, that we discovered that things are actually pretty worse. So it kind of makes the argument that you just need more regulation. There's research being done to find organisms which can break down PFAS. Slow going though. Yeah, I mean, like the last thing that I've read about is like there are bacteria that break down plastic. There are bacteria that break down plastic and stuff like that, but specifically microplastics and PFAS. Yeah, that's a whole other ballgame. The company said Section 5 allowed the agency to bypass a broad analysis of how the orders would harm the company's business and economy, since the provision only required the EPA to determine whether a chemical poses a risk to human health before the company can be barred from producing a chemical. The Fifth Circuit said the EPA does have the theoretical ability to regulate the company's fluorination process under Section 6 of TSCA, which applies to existing use of chemicals, but would have to do so through a lengthier process that would include a robust cost-benefit analysis and public notice and comment period. Yeah, I mean, like, at this point, like, it is very well known that PFAS are incredibly toxic. So the faster we stop, doing this, the better. The case is Enhanced Technology versus EPA in the Fifth Circuit Court of the Appeals, case number 23-60620. We'll see what comes out of this, but this is pretty disturbing. I think it's ludicrous to think that the very agency that's being tasked with protecting the environment, protecting human health, protecting our land, our water, our food, incidentally, can't be allowed to regulate things like toxic forever chemicals. But we'll see. We're going to fly through this one. Governor DeSantis signs a bill that bans children under 14 from having social media accounts. Ron DeSantis signed a bill on Monday, today, that will prohibit children younger than 14 from joining social media. Those who are 14 or 15 will need a parent's consent before they join a platform. HB 3 also directs social media companies to delete existing accounts of those who are under 14. Companies that fail to do so could be sued on behalf of the child who creates an account on the platform. The minor could then be awarded up to $10,000 in damages according to the bill. Companies found to be in violation of the law could also be held liable for up to $50,000 per violation, as well as attorney fees. Ultimately, we're trying to help parents navigate this very difficult terrain that we have now with raising kids, so I appreciate the work that's been put in, said DeSantis. DeSantis previously vetoed a more restrictive version of the bill that would have banned social media accounts for kids under 16. The bill also requires Florida residents to submit ID or other identifying material in order to join the social media. That previous bill, HB 3, which is slated to take effect in January of excuse me, January of 2025 comes as efforts to regulate social media continue to ramp up in the U.S. amid concerns from some parents that the platforms don't do enough to keep their kids safe online. In December, more than 200 organizers sent a letter urging Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to schedule a vote on the Kids Online Safety Act, or KOCA, SA, which seeks to create liability or duty of care for apps and online platforms that would recommend content to minors that can negatively affect their mental health. Which, like, you don't know that, so basically, you don't know that, so basically what you're going to end up doing is forcing all these social media companies essentially to, like, change how they operate. In January, lawmakers grilled CEOs from TikTok and Meta about TikTok, Twitter, and Meta about online child safety. The tech executives reaffirmed their commitment to child safety and pointed to various tools they offer as examples as to how they're proactive about preventing exploitation. Florida House Speaker Paul Renner and other advocates under the new law argue that social media use can harm children's mental health and could lead to sexual predators from communicating with minors. Quote, none of us can afford to be on the sidelines when it comes to social media. Several states that have enacted similar laws to limit teen social media, include Ohio and Arkansas, have been challenged by the NetChoice LLC, a coalition of social media platforms whose members include Meta, Google, Twitter, among others. As Florida's law is expected to face legal challenges over claims it violates the First Amendment, we're disappointed to see Governor DeSantis sign onto this route, said Carl Szabo, Vice President and General Counsel for NetChoice, calling the law unconstitutional. There are better ways of keeping Floridians, their family, and their data safe and secure online without violating their freedoms. You will not find a line in this bill that addresses good speech or bad speech because that would violate the First Amendment. We've not addressed that at all. What we've addressed is the addictive feature that are at the heart of why children stay on these platforms for hours and hours on end. But adults do too, ? He specifically called out NetChoice, saying, we're going to beat them and we're never going to stop. DeSantis argued the bill is constitutionally sound. Anytime I see a bill, if I don't think it's constitutional, I veto it. He described the bill as a fair application of the law and Constitution. Well, I guess we'll have to follow up on this and see what happens with this one. I'm a bit skeptical. I'm a bit skeptical. All right, folks. This is the last article. Abortion opponents who are seeking to convince the Supreme Court to limit access to the abortion bill. Mifra Priestone pointed to 3 studies by Genuity Health Projects and New York-based Women's Health Research Group to back up their arguments that it's unsafe despite its regulatory approval decades ago. But the way this research has been prominently cited by the plaintiffs in their bid to limit how the pill is prescribed and distributed is bewildering. Dr. Beverly Winnicott, Genuity's president, given that the conclusions broadly support easier access to the medication. Quote, they live on a completely different planet, said Winnicott of the plaintiffs during an interview in her Midtown Manhattan office. You can always distort information and say things that aren't true. The Supreme Court's conservative majority in 2022 overturned Roe, recognized that overturned the Roe v. Wade ruling that recognized a constitutional right to abortion, is set to hear the arguments tomorrow. President Biden's administration is appealing a lower court's decision that would roll back the USDA's actions in 2016 and 2021 to ease access of mifepristone. A ruling in favor of the plaintiffs could undercut federal regulatory authority over drug safety beyond just this medication. We've been following this case for a while, so we'll see what the 9 law wizards are going to have to say about this. But I don't have much confidence in the Supreme Court. You regret that ban? Oh man, just another clown that decided to show up from the circus, huh? All right, folks, we made it. It is just about 7:30, and I got to go get some food. So, folks, stay with me as we go, as we raid. So hang with me on the raid wave. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you, Hilda Beast, for bringing your wonderful community. I appreciate it. Thank you, Heat. Thank you, Michael Hassler, for modding the chat. I appreciate it. Thank you, Conscious Canuck, for the tier 1 sub. Thank you for the follows. Thank you for the biddies. I appreciate it. Folks, thank you, Mouselander, for hanging out. I appreciate it. Thank you, Conscious Canuck. Thank you all for chatting. I appreciate it. We are here Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to support the channel, don't forget to hit the follow button on your way out. It really does help us out. If you're on the YouTube, like the stream, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really does help us out. We are here Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Thank you again. Thank you, Hilda Beast, for bringing your wonderful community. As always, folks. Oh, also, guys, if you want to keep up with the channel, join the Discord, okay? Join the Discord. There's a bunch of wonderful people there. There's movie nights. There's a movie night, incidentally, coming up this week. So join the Discord. And if you want to support the channel and want to do so while wearing some cool merch, you can do that. ! Merch. I appreciate it. Thank you, Heat. Again, thank you, Michael Hassler. I appreciate it. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, thank you. See ya. Hang tight, folks. All right, folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.